Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Titleless Musings, and today I'm bringing you a new series on my iPad on my digital journal. Today I am starting the 12-part series 2026 Yes, No, or Maybe. So, if you don't know what the Yes, No, or Maybe thing is, I don't know who started it. I just saw it on TikTok, but it's basically creators who they'll like get a stack of books and tell you whether you should read them yes, no, or maybe. But the more I watched, the more I was like, okay, first of all, these are like the same books. It's always like ACOTAR, Quicksilver, The Cruel Prince, all that. All those kind of books that really blew up and went viral. But then I also found myself just wondering, like, why? So, like, if you say, no, you don't recommend a book, why not? Is there something wrong with the book, or was it just not your writing style? So then that got me brainstorming my own version. So, 2026 has been a year of very intense reading. I'm putting this out as a preface that this is very abnormal to read this amount of books in this short of a time. Unfortunately, 2026 just hasn't been a great year. I've had a lot happen and I have a lot of time. So, I'm not going to be going further into it than that. I'm not going to be taking questions on how many books I read. I personally annotate and review after I read a book, but you can absolutely read this many books and not do that at all. So please do not take how many books I've read as a recommendation or anything like that. This series is more focused on the books that I've read and whether I think that you should add them to your TBR or not. So to start off the series, obviously we're going to be starting with January. These will be different parts. It's June right now when I'm filming this, so obviously we'll have 6 videos right now, and I'll continue them through the end of the year. In each video, I will shorten this part where I'm making the spread, and that'll just be like a little intro for me to kind of get all the disclaimers out of the way, and then we'll get straight into the books. So, I think that's all the disclaimers that I had. Let's get into the first book. So my first book of the year was Defect, and I am giving this a yes, I do recommend this. I think that book 2 is better than book 1. This is book 2, and I ultimately preferred this over Horrorstör. I actually found this one scarier in some ways. I think that this is a great accessible introduction to sci-fi. It's quite easy to understand. I didn't find the language isn't particularly difficult, so if you're trying to get into sci-fi, this may be a good option for you. But with that said, I still didn't love this series. I thought this was just okay. Overall, I gave it a 3-star for a series, but if I had to kind of pick a person that I would recommend this to, I would recommend this to you if you are trying to get into sci-fi but maybe feel a little intimidated. Also, if you're into kind of like liminal horror, if you read things like, what's it called? An Unknown Broadcast, or The Unknown Broadcast, I think is what it's called. This is probably going to be a great series / book for your enjoyment, for your reading enjoyment. So for book 2, I have A Court of Silver Flames, and I'm going to give this a maybe. Mostly because of the sunk cost fallacy. If you've read this far in the series, you may want to just finish the book out. I know that there are other books coming soon, so that may be something that you determine. There are some good scenes in this. I always maintain that the last 30% of Sarah J. Maas books are really good. I really enjoy the last 30%, even if I hate the rest of the book. But overall, I would have to give the series a no, because I read it. This was kind of my foray into fantasy that people said was quite easy and accessible. It is easy and accessible, but I just really didn't like the series. I didn't vibe with the characters, and I just don't think that Sarah J. Maas is for me. So for A Court of Silver Flames, I'm just going to have to give it a maybe. Book 3 that I read this year is The Widow Killer. This is a book I picked up at a used book sale, and this is my first no of the series. I don't recommend this book at all. It is incredibly, incredibly slow. It is such a slog to get through, and I think that there are better World War II mysteries that are more engaging. I also am going to give it some points because I read an English translation, so there could be some translation issues. But in general, it took me almost 4 months to read this book. It almost put me in a reading slump. I just did not enjoy it. I ended up donating it as soon as I finished. I think that if you're looking at this one, definitely try something else. I think that there are other war mysteries that are better written, maybe more engaging, and are maybe more accessible, especially if you don't normally read historical fiction. For my fourth book, I am recommending Nevergreener. This is a yes. I am a huge fan of Ruth Jones. I consider her an auto-buy author at this point. I think that this book specifically is a great blend of generational saga lit fic while also blending kind of like the women's fic. So if you've read books like Sandwich, this is a good one. The storyline is very unique. It does contain cheating and non-consensual extramarital affairs. So if that's a trigger warning for you, definitely don't read this one. But I particularly think that this book is great for fans of European literature. So if you like Sally Rooney, you're probably gonna like Ruth Jones. So the next book is Meet the Newmans, and this is a yes from me. I thought that this book was really, really good. I am a historical fiction fan, so you may enjoy this if you're not a historical fiction fan. It is quite accessible. I think that this is a great look at family fame in the 50s and 60s, particularly in the time right now where we're talking a lot about family channels. I think that this does a great job of talking about fame and children and family and growing up in that light. The setting in this book is absolutely incredible. You truly feel like you are in the show with the Newmans. And then this book is also very memorable. I love books that I think about long after I read them, and this is certainly one that you won't forget. So, for the next book, we have another historical fiction book, which is The Star Society, and this one I give a very heavy yes. This is a World War II novel. It's inspired by Audrey Hepburn, which I didn't know at the time of reading, but I found out after, and I thought it was just so interesting that this was based on a real story. This could be a negative or a positive depending on what you like. This is multi POV, multi timeline, so obviously it jumps back and forth in time, and we follow the sisters. This I found very immersive. It really helped me get the perspective of the characters, and I definitely recommend this if you are a fan of World War II novels. It's obviously there's a lot of stories that have been told in this genre, rightfully so, but this felt like a really new look at family, at the Red Scare after, and like communism in the US. It was just really, really good. I really enjoyed this one. So we come now to our first nonfiction book, which is The Pain Brokers. And I'm going to give this one a maybe. The audiobook, which is what I listened to, was phenomenal. It's great narrative nonfiction. It almost feels like it's fiction because you can't believe that this is actually happening, but it's true. I definitely think this book is enraging. I was so angry on behalf of the victims listening to this book, and I think that it's very well written. However, for me, I just found myself losing interest by the midway point because I'm not a big medical nonfiction fan. I think if you enjoyed books like Everything is Tuberculosis or the one that came out last year, what is it called? No More Tears, I think it's called, about Johnson and Johnson, you'll probably like The Pain Brokers. The next book I'm going to be discussing is The Deep, and this is not one that I recommend. I think that this is a phenomenal idea, but I just personally didn't like the way that it was executed. For me, I found that I really stayed engaged until about the 50% mark, and then I started noticing like, oh, it's kind of repetitive, it's starting to slow down. I just stopped enjoying it. I did listen to this on audiobook because I am a Hamilton fan, but I love the audiobook. I thought the audiobook was great. And then kind of one of my biggest issues is it's not really rereadable. It's not one I would go out and purchase, for example, because I don't think I would ever reread it. So this may be good if you're just looking for a quick audiobook to listen to once, but I don't recommend getting this one to own, and I also wouldn't recommend like rushing out to get it because it was just okay. The next book that I'm recommending is Us Three, which is also by Ruth Jones. Again, I'll reiterate, she's an autobiography author. I love her work. This is a very emotional book. This one actually, I think, had me in tears more than the first book. And it is my favorite of the two that I've recommended so far. I think that Us Three is just a brilliant story. Again, it's that same kind of generational saga slash women's fic, if you will. And specifically, I would recommend this book. If you liked Thirst Trap, you're probably going to like this book. Again, like I said, like Sally Rooney, I think fans of Sally Rooney would like this. But this book specifically reminds me so much of Thirst Trap that when I read Thirst Trap later in the year, I was like, oh my god, these are the same book. So now we're moving on to a book called I See You've Called in Dead. This is a no. I did not like this book at all. I had such high hopes when I put it on hold, but ultimately I found it really let me down. The biggest issue I had was the character development. Like, where was the character development? I don't feel like the character progressed at all. And I also don't think that that was helped by the fact that the narrative of the book was very, very dry. It wasn't, it sells itself on Goodreads as being like The Office, which I'm a huge fan of The Office. It is not like that at all. I didn't find any of it very funny. I was like, wow, this is an interesting start. And then I think after the first chapter, it was like, okay, this is really going to take me a long time to get through. So ultimately, if you have this one on your list, I don't recommend this. Moving on to The Compound, I'm going to give this a maybe. I personally did not like this book. It's very weird girl coded, which is my favorite genre, but there were several plot holes, like the fact that they were like, oh well, we can't talk about our life outside, and then all of a sudden they could for a challenge. It happened so fast. I feel like it was really overwritten and it didn't address the questions that I had. So for me, this book was just not it. But I would recommend this if you're looking for something like Love Island and Hunger Games. Maybe as well, I think this is kind of, it's not super futuristic, but it is a little bit futuristic. So if you're kind of into futuristic dystopia, that's maybe a little bit lighter, not so much science, this is probably a good one. But for me, I just found it overwritten and I didn't enjoy it. So next up on the list is Departures, and I'm giving this one a maybe. For me, this ended up actually being a 5-star read. It was one of my first 5-star reads of the year. I really liked this book, but I can see that a lot of people are probably going to find this quite slow. It's not nonfiction, it's more autofiction, and then it blends like memoir narrative. So it is a slower paced book. If I remember correctly, I listened to it on audiobook, so it does also have longer chapters. So if you're someone who kind of prefers shorter chapters for attention span, this is probably not the one for you. I gave it 5 stars. Like I said, this book did put me in an existential crisis. I love when books are just like infinitely quotable, and I would say that Departures is definitely that. There were a lot of lines that I took from this. I just found it very meaningful to where I was at the time. But again, it can be quite slow, so I'm just gonna give it a maybe. Next up in line, we have The Future Saints by Ashley Winstead. I love this book. This book is a yes. I definitely recommend this, particularly if you enjoy Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is very reminiscent of that same style. I know it's been compared to, what is it, Daisy Jones and the Six is what I think it's called. I haven't read that, but this was actually reminding me a lot of Malibu Rising. So if you do like Taylor Jenkins Reid, this is definitely one that you should pick up. This is going to be my first kind of big check trigger warnings. This book does deal with mental health issues as well as substance abuse and rehab, so definitely check your trigger warnings, protect yourself first. This book was so emotional. I really loved it, and the ending is, I can't spoil it. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what happens in the end, but the very last line I ended up actually writing down in my journal because it was so powerful. It really connected the characters at the end. This is just a book where I liked everything about it, so I definitely recommend this one. Now for the final book of this first video, Is This a Cry for Help by Emily Austin, and I'm giving this a yes. Again, I highly advise you to check your trigger warnings with this. This book discusses things like mental health issues, mental breakdowns. The plot of the book as well features some homophobia and transphobia, which can be triggering to some people. It's about a librarian, and it's so good. I recommend this if you love books. I always wanted to be a librarian, and I think that would be such a cool job. But this book highlights some of the darker points of being a librarian. The main character is so brilliant, so complex, so lovable, and this book, I know people say they don't like this one as much as the other Emily Austin works, but I liked this book, and this definitely made Emily Austin an auto-by-author for me. So that was the final book. I'm just going to put the kind of finishing touches on the spread, and then I will let you take a look at the spread as a whole one last time before we close out the video. I hope you enjoyed this first one. Like I said, this will be a series of parts that I'll do monthly, and I've got a lot of books to go through. I think right now it's looking like it's going to be 160 minutes of content, I think, just for the first 6 parts. So I hope you'll stick around and check out the other videos in this series. Definitely let me know what your thoughts are, what your opinions are on these books as well. I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.